All right, let's get back on it. This is what I call the technical session. This is our device control in your home. This is I say technical, it's a little bit technical, but it's really all about buying the right device or finding the right setting. That's really all it's about. So I don't even really want to tell you it's a technical session when it's really not. But we're going to be talking about how to secure the devices in your home. Now, this is kind of where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, on device control. And I will say all the things that I'm going to be talking about. A lot of them are back there on the table, but you can go to my website and you can go to the resources page and you can check out any of these. And these are actually, believe it or not, I update everything, or at least I try to update everything every August. So you guys are the first ones to see the new slides for this session. So I don't even have these new slides up on the website yet, but if you'll give me a day or two, I'll get those up on the website, and then you can download these slides if you want to. Okay? All right. One thing I talk about with children and everything, I think I said this before, you'll never regret waiting too long, but you'll almost always regret starting too early. It's kind of one of those things where I hear parents all the time saying, man, I wish I wouldn't have given my child a phone so early. But you hardly never, ever hear them say, I really regret waiting too long. You never hear that. So it's kind of one of those things that you can always wait, but you can't always go backwards. And so it's just to think about. Now, this used to be a little bit more of a discussion most of the time, but I think, in quotations, that a lot of people understand the main differences between these platforms. Specifically, Apple and Google. And I've got this little Android guy. I think I've got a pointer up here. I've got this little Android guy right here to represent Android. There's no right or wrong answer with these phones these days, okay? I'm not going to tell you that one is better than the other. They both have their strengths. They both have their weaknesses. The one thing that I would recommend, and you really don't have to do this. It just makes it easier on you. But if you're going to just stick with one in your family. So stick with all Apple if you can, or stick with all Google if you can. If you can't do that, then what you can always do is you can use the apps that we're going to talk about, with the exception of screen time, can be used on all of these devices. So they'll be used you can load the apps on Android, but you can also load the apps on iOS system. Anytime I say iOS, I mean iPhones and iPads, okay? So different systems, different platforms, but different philosophies, okay? Apple is very closed off. They don't want it, they're not gonna let you mess with the operating system. They're not gonna let you put themes on it and stuff. They're not going to let you change colors a lot. They've done some of that stuff in recent updates. But there will be a big update next month. They usually put out an update in September or October of every year. And they will update the operating system. And sometimes, if you wait long enough, they'll do it for you. And then that's when I get the phone calls from other people saying, they changed my stuff around, and all sorts of stuff. Yes, I understand that they do that. But most of the time, it's because they do it for security updates as well. Not just to change the look of stuff, but to change for security updates as well. So that stuff, you need to keep up to date for security updates as well. If you cannot remember the last time you updated your phone, it's probably time to update your phone, okay? So go ahead and do that when you get home. Android, again, very different set of devices. You can only go to Apple and get Apple devices. Okay? You can get them on Amazon and different places like that, but only Apple makes Apple devices. There's a lot of companies that make Google devices. Samsung, LG, Huawei, all the bigger Korean companies, Japanese companies, Sony makes some. All those different places, they make systems for Android. Android is on a lot of stuff. If you have a smart fridge or a smart anything in your house, it's probably Android. If you have an Alexa in your house, it's Android based, okay? Apple does not allow its stuff to be put on other stuff, okay? Now I do put Amazon down here because Amazon has Kindle devices, not just the Kindle Reader devices, but also Kindle Fire devices that are actually pretty decent little things for kids. And so we'll talk about those as well. But that's also Android based, okay? So Apple operates mostly a closed system, and I put an asterisk there with open system for Android because they've closed off some stuff, but it's still very much more open than Apple would be, okay? So just know that when you walk into a cell phone store and you see just a sea of black rectangles, they are not all created equal. They all have different strengths and different weaknesses. Now that being said, I will tell you that from a parental controls standpoint, they're about the same. So there's not any better solution for you necessarily to pick. Just again, it would be easier if everybody was on the same platform, okay? Now I want to stop at every slide here and ask if you have anything to add or any questions before we keep moving on, because I can get going pretty fast in this, and I don't want to go too fast and not answer any of your questions. Okay? I'm going to answer every one question. Y'all are not going to have any questions after this. It's going to be great. Okay, 3 things. Make sure your child has not purchased another device, meaning they have a device you don't know about. Well, how do you make sure of that? Well, you follow some of the things that we're going to be talking about here, about discovering different devices that are on your Wi-Fi network, that are making sure that you have devices that are not added to your iCloud or Google Play account. And again, that brings us to the second one here. Make sure your child knows not to sign into someone else's iCloud or Google Play account. Now, why would I say that? Anybody know? They may not have parental controls, okay? If you have parental controls set, your child should not be able to sign out, first of all. So that should be a given. But if you do not have parental controls set and they can sign out, what does the iCloud account on a phone control, an iPhone? What? It syncs everything. That's the trick. It's a trick question. The answer is everything. Google Play, if you sign in, it controls everything about it. All the settings that you have, all of the iCloud files that you have, all your photos, all your credit card numbers, they sync to that device, okay? And so anything that you have on that iCloud device is going to be on there. Now, this brings up an interesting question. When is a good time to, let me back up. Should your child have their own iCloud or Google Play account? The answer is yes. Because no matter how young they are, in fact, if you have a child that's born, I would get them an email address and an iCloud account so that they can use it later, okay? But with their own account, you actually have more control. I've talked to a lot of parents that they started their kids out, and it's not wrong, but they started their kids out on signing them in on their accounts and their iClouds and stuff. And again, that's fine, but then it leads to confusion. When they start emailing or messaging in their early teens and things like that, it can lead to a lot of confusion and a lot of connection issues and a lot of sync issues. And so it's much better to have their own account because then you have actually more control. And you can actually exert more control over theirs, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But don't let them sign in or out to any of those, and if you have parental controls and restrictions set on those devices, then that won't be allowed to happen anyways, okay? So again, it's really easy. You actually, for an iPhone, you don't have to download anything to set parental controls, and I'm going to show you that here in just a second. On Google, all you have to have is the Family Link app, and it's an app that goes right along. It's made by Google, and it's actually very good. It's the screen time for Google devices, okay? It's free, and it works, and it's actually pretty great. So very little to do the initial set of parental controls, okay? Questions? We're going to go over all this. We're going to get into it a little bit different. A little bit more in depth, rather. Okay, so I kind of put this together years ago, but I think of it as kind of like these walls of security, okay? You've got wall number 1 here on the left, a filter or software on your physical Wi-Fi device. So you've got a TP-Link router, an Eero router. Let me ask you, what is the main internet service provider here for you guys in Versailles? Anybody? Spectrum? Everybody has Spectrum? So everybody has different stuff, is that what you're saying? Okay. Second question, how many of you know if you have the capability to use your own hardware, meaning you had to go to Walmart to get a router to use? Anybody have to do that? Okay. Boy, that's becoming less and less common. See, my co-op in my town, I love it. I'm a nerd, so I love it. But they're literally like, we're just connecting it to your house. You do whatever you want to after that. So I have to configure my network. I have to get it's great. And that means I can use my own stuff. Now, with you being on Spectrum or the other providers that you have, you're going to need to check with them first on if you can even replace your Wi-Fi router, because some places like AT&T, they really don't want you to replace your router. And they want you to either use their internet safety stuff on the router level. Look at these as walls, but also look at them as levels, okay? You've got protection on your filter on your physical Wi-Fi device. That's the Wi-Fi that goes out to everybody that walks into your house that signs onto your Wi-Fi, okay? Kind of like your guard dog at home. It's kind of like your guard dog at home. Guard dog doesn't live everywhere else. It doesn't go to school with your kids. It doesn't go here with your kids, but it stays here at the house. That's what you've got. You've got kind of a dark guard dog here. The wall 2, the second column right here in the middle, is kind of the ones that are set here, and I've got some other third-party apps that we're going to talk about as well. There's 2 levels. I should probably have a separator right here, but starting with Screen Time and Family Link, those are kind of built in. If you don't get what you want from those, you can move on to third-party apps that are not made by Google, Apple, first-party stuff, okay? And then the third wall over here is kind of the app by app. So with things like Netflix and YouTube and some of the social media apps that we've talked about, you kind of have to go each individual app and look at their settings because they're all different. And they all have different kinds of things. Some of them are very good and some of them are not very good. In fact, up until recently, YouTube used to really not be very good at parental controls, and now they're at least decent, and we'll go over that. Questions. This is about when like deer in the headlights kind of look happens. So I hope I'm not being confusing, but just think of this as home Wi-Fi right here, and then the first line of defense on your phones, and then if you have to do the second line of defense with an app that you pay for, then you do that. And this is kind of the third line of defense, the checklist of things that you got to do. Yes, sir?
If you're in a system where you must use the supplied router from the company, you can always hang another router, follow that.
You can, most of the time. That is not always the case. In AT&T's case, they do not like you doing that. You can do it, and it might work, but sometimes they will disable a router that's connected to that. AT&T is really strict on their stuff. I don't know of anybody else that does that, but the only reason I know is my father-in-law has AT&T, and we could not get anything connected to it to work. They wanted you to use their router and their router alone, and that was it. And if you wanted to change something on it, you had to call them or get a guy to come out there. It was very confusing. Now, most of the places you can do that. It's called daisy chaining. And you can just daisy chain a router of your own using to whatever the company has given you, okay? If you look on your router and you can like write your name in the dust on the top of your router, you're laughing, so I know it's kind of true. It's probably time to call up your internet service provider and be like, hey, can I get a replacement router? Because odds are you're probably paying $10 a month for it anyways. So they have to give you one if you request it. By the way, that's a little life hack there, so just call them up. And odds are, if you replace your router, they may have updated your speed, and the router will update with speed, and you'll get better coverage. Routers are a lot like cars. They actually do wear out. The signal will get weaker over time. You'll get, in your back bathroom, you'll have great coverage at first, and then after years, you won't have but 1 or 2 bars back there. And so, yeah, it's very interesting to think about. They do wear out. They have components inside of them that just do wear out because they're putting out a constant signal, okay? So if you can kind of attach another router to it that you can control yourself, I really like the Eero brand of routers. And we have these at home. No router system is perfect, and I'm not saying that these guys are perfect either, but they're owned by Amazon now, and that used to scare me a little bit, but they haven't really messed with them that much since they bought them. That was about 2 or 3 years ago. But the brand name is Eero. You can find them usually at like, I believe Walmart, Sam's, Target, places like that. You can find them at the big box stores. But they give you all these little features. You can pay. The routers are actually not that expensive at like $79 and $99. You can get the big beefy ones for, if you have a huge house, you can get a big beefy one for $200 or $250. But they're most of all, they're very easy to set up. You literally buy one, you plug it into the wall, and then you open the app on your phone. You download the app, you open the app on your phone, and it literally just tells you what to do. Okay, plug this in. Okay, now walk and plug this one into this outlet. It literally will tell you all of what to do. And it will give you the ability to see unauthorized devices. So if at home, if my 14-year-old's, if his friend came over and wanted to log on to our Wi-Fi, it would pop up on my phone here in Versailles and say, such and such wants to log on to your Wi-Fi. That's pretty cool. And I didn't have to do anything special for that. It's literally just this system that I pay for, okay? And you get a filtering. You can use their filtering as well. It's called Eero Pro, and it's like $3 a month. I think it's gone up now. I think it's probably like $9.99 a month. But it's pretty good filtering at the router level, meaning everything that connects to your home internet is going to be filtered, which is great, because that's what you want. Questions? Okay.
When we did the cameras outside,
Okay.
they said we needed more internet, and they bought them,
They just popped them in, didn't they? Okay.
and I didn't know they did anything but sit there and sit there.
Yeah, so you should be able, what you should be able to do is download the Eero app from the App Store, and it's free, you don't have to pay for it, and you should be able to sign in with your account information, and you'll be able to see your networks. I don't have any screenshots of the actual network, but it'll show you, it does an automated speed test every night to check and make sure your internet's working good, but it also will block devices from getting on there that you don't want on your network, but it also will tell you when something is allowed or is requesting access. So this comes into play when either your child or grandchild has a device that you don't know about, which again, not trying to say that they would ever do it, but if they say, well, I don't have a device, and they try to log on to the Wi-Fi, you'll know exactly about it. So, what's that?
You can name your devices too.
Yes.
You know, it's not just in a bunch of numbers and letters and stuff. You can name that this is your phone or your TV in the living room or your whatever, so that you know.
Because it'll say the company name of the thing, because it'll say like Apple device 757 or something like that. And then you say, oh, well, that's my phone, and you rename it Chad's iPhone. Or if it says, it'll say Nintendo of America. It's, oh, that's the Nintendo that I have, the Nintendo Switch. Okay, I'll label it Daddy's Nintendo Switch, Mommy's Nintendo Switch, things like that. So you can name them. So it'll take a little bit of like figuring that kind of stuff out. But at the same time, when you can look on there and see, oh, why was my grandchild on the internet at 1:30 a.m.? Why were they on it? And then you can see every site that they've been on too. And you can set specific blocks for them. You can say, well, I want to block from them. I want to block all the shopping apps. I've got a little niece that just loves to go shopping, and I want to block the shopping app. I want to block Amazon and eBay and Mercari and all that stuff. It'll have a whole category of that stuff where you can just block it in one fell swoop. I can block all the gaming starting at a certain time so that when, and this is so funny, by the way, when you have boys that are little gamers, every single night this happens, y'all. At 7 p.m., they get 6 to 7 to play their video games online. And at 7 p.m., it just shuts off because I've got it set that way. And I can be anywhere in the house. I can be in the backyard, and it is like weeping and gnashing of teeth. I mean, it is every single night, sometimes tears, but it cut off in the middle of my game. I'm like, I'm so sorry about that. Get in the bathtub. Let's go. Like and so and it's got this hard stop and limit. It's like, okay, well, that's what we're going to do. And so, but I've got it right now to where it's set where they can at least finish their game before it cuts them off. So, but yeah, you can set all these different times. You can do all that just through these routers. That's not even talking about the settings that we're going to talk about on the actual devices themselves. Because what you've got is you've got like multiple levels here where you can set this stuff. Now, you can have so many settings that your settings have settings, right? That you get confused. So you probably need to kind of map out and figure this out of what you're going to enable on what kind of level. But at the same time, if you're just looking for something to be simple, to be able to do this, then I really love these. And Eero is just one of the companies I can recommend. A lot of these companies now have the exact same kind of system to where they offer this kind of services. And the app is clear to understand, and you can poke around on it. You do not have to be a computer programmer to figure it out. Okay? That's a great, great question, though. Great comment to add on to that. Okay, here's where we start with, if you notice, wall number 2. This is that middle wall, okay? And this is where you start and say, okay, I want basic parental controls on this device. Where do I start, okay? If you have an Android device, then I would say you start at Google Play Family Link, families.google.com, okay? Great place to start, and we'll talk about it first. And then there is a built-in, you have to download nothing on an iPhone. But if you go to Settings, and then you scroll down just a little bit, and it goes to Screen Time, there is a whole suite of parental controls that you can use. You don't have to pay for it, you don't have to download it, you don't have to do anything for it, okay? So let's go over those real quickly. This is families.google.com. This is actually all of our family. I've got all of our family on here. We've got some weirdness going on because we had Landman boys here for a second. I've got to figure that out. I don't know, but you can have as many family members on here as you want. I can click on any of these, and I can see we've got family manager is me, and then my family member is my wife, and then of course we've got 1, 2, 3 sons, and so this manages their Google accounts. Well, I was able to tie in their school email accounts into these and sync them up, and now since they've got Chromebooks, I can actually monitor what they do on their Chromebooks at school, but I can also monitor what they do on them at home. And so I can see all these different things, and you have to kind of know what tools you're using first. If my boys had iPads that they used at school, I would want to probably use the Apple system. But the great thing about Google is that anytime you're using Google services, and YouTube is a Google service, it's a Google property, anytime you're using Google services and things like that, you can manage them with Family Link. And it's actually very comprehensive and very good. So you've got, the app looks like this. It looks like a little kite. And you can download it from Google Play, but you can also download it on your iPhone or iPads to manage these things as well. So I've got the app on my iPhone and iPad. The great thing about Google is they're going to make their app for everything. The bad thing about Apple is they're not going to make their app for everything, okay? They're only going to make their app for iPhones, and I would say that most of us probably have iPhones. Do I have any Android people? Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. So Android is actually a little bit more universal in this case than an iOS or iPhone would be, okay? So you can set screen time limits. You can manage your child's apps. You can literally just turn off an app. If they're having trouble with, you're restricted from Fortnite. You can just turn it off. You can manage what they see online. This is actually the spot where I point parents really, if you want to manage YouTube right here, then this is a really good spot to be able to manage YouTube. And we'll talk about YouTube specific ones there in just a little bit. But you can actually, on an Android phone, this one's very important at the bottom here, calls, contacts, and texts. You can monitor text messaging and things like that through this for free on a Google device. You can't do that on an iPhone. So you can download Family Link, but you can't use and manage calls and text on an iPhone. The only bad thing, and I love Apple stuff. I do love Apple stuff. But the only bad thing I have to say about Apple is that they take their privacy so seriously that even child protection, they don't think about it. And they don't think about parents that really I need to know what my kids are texting and calling and things like that. I need to know. They do not want you to have access to that because they say that their privacy standard is so high, okay? So you have to kind of find, if your child has an iPhone, you kind of have to find workarounds to know who they're texting and know who they're calling, because Apple really likes to keep a lid on that for all of their users, not just kids, but for all of their users. Does anybody remember the guy there was a shooter at, they call it the San Bernardino shooter at I believe it was an army base maybe, or it was an army guy or something. Anyways, he shot a bunch of people, and the FBI found his phone. They found his phone, and they gave it to Apple and said, we need you to unlock this, subpoena, we need you to unlock this. And Apple did not refuse to unlock it. They just said, well, we can't do that. Well, what are you talking about? You can't do this. Your phone, it's your hardware. Well, we literally cannot do that. Apple has engineered themselves out of getting to your messages and calls, okay? Because they take privacy that seriously. Now, that's great, except when it comes to my kids and I actually need to know what they're doing. So you see where it's good, but it's also bad here. Android, on the other hand, will let you access a lot of that different stuff because they tend to be a little bit of a little bit of a more open system, okay? All that being said, questions? Okay? Still on Family Link, you can see where they are, geolocated. It's like the Find My system on iPhones. You can set screen time limits. So you really could use Family Link, even if you had iOS devices, you could use it to a certain extent and cover almost everything. So it's a pretty comprehensive and really good app, especially if your child works on a Chromebook, especially if your child is on YouTube, and really, if you have an Android phone, you should absolutely be on Family Link, okay? It's free to use, and it's a very good place to start for parental controls. Okay. So Apple has a big support page that you can go down, and all of these little blue hyperlinks right here have videos behind them, and you can watch all these videos on all sorts of different stuff for parental controls for your on the iOS side. And so it's very, very informative, and they explain these things in 2 or 3 minutes that are really, really good. This is kind of a little bit of a checklist, and I've got this on my website. But you have to set, for screen time on iOS devices, you have to go to settings, and you have to set a screen time passcode, and then you can add your own face under Face ID. So there's one of these things that, like on Face ID, it says Face 1 and alternate appearance, or Face 2. And so you can actually add your face as one of the faces. I would highly recommend you do that so that you do not get locked out of your phone. There was a girl at Graymere, her mother came to me. She had her phone, she had the physical phone of her daughter's, said, this is my daughter's phone. She won't tell me the passcode. Can you help me get into it? And I said, there's not a lot I can do if she won't tell you the passcode. Now, I did joke around with her and I said, yeah, if this was my daughter, she'd be dead. She wouldn't have to worry about no stinking passcode because she'd be dead, okay? After a recent, right? And so it's kind of one of those things where you always want to have a way to get on your child's device, especially if they're being extremely defiant in a situation like that, okay? And then I've got all these audit things. You go to privacy settings, Game Center, not really big concern right now. There's so many other game things that they need to do. I think Derek mentioned Epic Games, all these game platforms have their own logins, and it's just maddening, okay? So it is just a big ball. Just find a note in your Apple Notes or on your Google Notes and just write down these passwords inside of those apps if you have to keep up with those gaming passwords, but it's just a headache for all those. And then you can go to audit all the apps and their access, and then you set up, the last one I've got on there is set up family sharing. Now family sharing, I'll talk about in a minute because I've got screen time stuff here. So this is the screen time main screen, okay? If you go set up screen time, this is what you'll see. You have to turn it on first because they leave it off by default. But if you go turn it on your child's device, or on your device for that matter, you should see some statistics. And you can tap on any of these right here and see exactly what they are. Now, I know 6 hours and 40 minutes looks like a lot per day. Don't judge me, please. I listen to a lot of music and while I'm working, and so that's probably what it's coming out with. But you can go to and tap on all these things, and you can go to all sorts of limits and restrictions. You can see all these categories of apps and websites and contacts and always allowed apps and screen time schedules and time allowances and content and privacy restrictions. All this stuff you can set different parameters on for your child's device, okay? Let's keep moving through this. So at the top of the screen there, I've got screen time, and then this is scheduling and time allowances. You can set times by the day of the week for the things that you want them to be able to do. You can set them to have access to certain apps at certain times of the day, or not have access at certain times of the day. So if you do not want them having access to any type of gaming apps during school hours, guess what? 06 to, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, no access to that. Or if you want them to get their homework done when they get home, you block it at that time. So you've got all sorts of different settings that you can do. And the great thing about this is this will sync with their other things. And you can do all of this through Family Link as well on an Android device. So everything that you can do in screen time here, you can do in Family Link with Google Android devices as well. You can go to scheduling time allowances, then you manage each category, and you can go to any one of these apps. See the little arrows on the side? You can go to any one of these apps, and you can see exactly how much time you're spending on it, how much time you want to allot to those different things, and sometimes you can even set specific device settings if those settings, if the company has written those settings into the settings app. Most of the time, you'll have to go to the app itself and change those settings, okay? So it's kind of like a little bit of like a needle in the haystack kind of thing. You've kind of got to go find the apps and services that your kid uses and set the settings that way. We'll talk a little bit more about that here soon. Content and privacy restrictions is actually a lot more important than you might think, because you get here and you have to turn on restrictions here on this little toggle, but then you can set Siri. Siri actually used to be a big loophole on iPhones. And the reason why I know this is because my 9-year-old at the time figured it out. And he's incredibly smart, and he found out that if you did something on Siri and you asked it to find something for you, you could actually tell Siri, no, just pull that up on the internet for me, or pull that up in Safari. Well, I had Safari disabled on his iPad, but it would pull up a tiny little window on his iPad of Safari, and he was surfing websites through that. Nice little loophole, yeah.
Tab, and it's got a search for
Yep.
And he was searching.
Same thing.
Signing out for Minecraft.
Yep.
And it would bring up Edge, notifications on the Microsoft app, and he wants to look at this website. I'm like, how can he even look at this website? Because I've been saying, well, you know the website. You show it. Okay.
Yep.
Gotta figure that one out.
Yep. And there's all sorts of, you would think, again, these are billion-dollar companies that should have had at least somebody test these things out. And you'll find loopholes in all this stuff sometimes as well. But it looks to me, again, like at least iOS has plugged a bunch of those loopholes. And so you can go and set all these different things on content and privacy restrictions. If what I have to do now is anytime my boys want to download an app, they can't do it themselves, obviously. So they can't even go to the App Store and hit it and request it because they can't pull up the App Store, because I don't want them surfing around on that. So what I do is I go and I turn off content and privacy restrictions. The App Store pops up. I go to the App Store, download the app for them, put in the password, and then I go turn back on content and privacy restrictions, and then the App Store goes away. It's jumping through hoops. But at the same time, it's kind of like, I asked them to keep a running list, like, okay, tell me the apps that you want me to download for you, and just make me a short list, and then we'll look at them all, and then we'll download them if they're appropriate. So it's this kind of it's this kind of arduous thing. But I know it's going to be a long afternoon when my kid comes up and says, "Hey, I want you to download this." Oh, okay. So there's not a really great thing for this. There's all sorts of systems that you can get into of managing devices, a little bit more complex, like what schools do. Schools will have a stack of iPads this high or a stack of Chromebooks this high, and they can log into their computer and go, download this app, this app, this app to this computer, and it just pops it on there. That would be really cool if Apple had something like that for families with multiple kids, but as it stands, that's usually only for schools and for enterprise stuff right now. So, but anyways, moving on. This is one thing that you need to go on and turn on for every child. Sensitive photos and video protection. Communication safety needs to be on. Now, has anybody ever heard of CSAM? CSAM, Child Sexual Abuse Material. This is a feature that, again, does not work all the time, but when it does work, you're very thankful for it. But on the iPhone, and I'm pretty sure Android devices have something very similar, but on the iPhone, if you have this enabled, then what it does is if it detects any kind of sexual photo or nudity on the screen, it will blur it. And it will not even ask, it will send you a notification on your phone because you have it set and you're the managing person. And so this absolutely needs to be turned on. They started doing this about a year or two ago. It had some controversy behind it, I don't really know, but now it seemed like that has all leveled out. And so you can absolutely go turn this on, and I would highly recommend that you do it. Now, does it work for everything? Not all the time. But especially in messages, because especially if it's an Apple-controlled app and Messages is an Apple app, they have really good controls over that. So if somebody was to send them an inappropriate photo, it would blur it. Okay? Very, very good. You need to know about that. Okay, questions? You are still with me? We're still moving on? Yes, sir.
Is it, there's no way that comes out, but so I'm an Apple, and I watched the WBC back in June. Do you think some of the Apple stuff that they talked about, some of the stuff that Apple talked about then, because that was one of their big features was child protection, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that will change a lot of what they currently have?
So these are actually the new ones from iOS 27 that'll be coming out. Some of these actually, so I meant to say that, is that these are all iOS 27. You're on 26 right now. These will be the ones that are coming out in the next month. So if you go on and you don't see as many options on yours, that means they just have not come out yet. They've actually had a bunch of, like you said, a bunch of improvements to these things. That was one of the this screen right here, you probably won't see all that, because Siri has been rewritten from the ground up, and it's actually useful now, but at the same time, that means that kids can use it to look at stuff they're not supposed to look at, and you can actually set restrictions on Siri now where you couldn't before. So yeah, that's one of those kinds of things that will be coming out this fall. Pretty important, I meant to say that. Sorry if I missed that. Yeah, most of these will be in iOS 26, which you should always be up to date, but especially if your kid has a phone, if you allow your kid to have a phone, you need to make sure that it's updated properly. I wouldn't recommend doing a full update the first day it comes out, obviously, but a week later, I'd say that's a pretty good thing. Go ahead and update the phones and all the things and get on the newest version of whatever they have out. Because odds are they're going to probably have bug fixes and things like that come in after it. Sometimes they even add features and different things and stuff like that. Okay? Questions? That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Family sharing. If you haven't used family sharing on an Apple device, it's really quite convenient. That's how we manage our stuff at home. Google Play Family Link has it built in by default. Apple tends to talk about it a little bit separately, but you literally just go to settings. This is direct from their website. You go and choose to include there, and then you're all set. So I can control basically a lot of different stuff on my kids' phones from my phone, which is great. It's a lot of the same kinds of things as controlling my home internet. It's kind of the same thing. I can control purchases. I can control all sorts of different things. I've even got it set to where they can't get on the internet and they can't get on the App Store, but even when I unlock the App Store for them and I'm trying to download an app for them, it still will send me a request. So even if they found a way to get on the App Store, they still would need my permission to download that app. So again, it's just another kind of hedge of protection there. And this is one of those things where you can actually find where their device is. You can get, if you have a Mac, you get notifications from different things of they access this, or this is their weekly report from screen time, how much time they were on these things, all sorts of stuff. So it's actually pretty convenient. And you'll notice a lot of these tools have a lot of overlap, meaning they duplicate functionality across certain things. Just find what works for you and what is the easiest for you to manage, and that will be helpful. Okay, any questions about family sharing before we move on? I did want to say, now this is getting into the, if you cannot accomplish what you want to accomplish with Google Family Link or with screen time, then you can move on to get a little bit deeper in some parental control apps that are specifically built for those things, okay? And again, if you have Custodio running, you don't necessarily need all of the protections in screen time running at the same time. There you'll cross wires and all sorts of stuff. So you need to make sure that those things line up as well. But if you have found yourself, you have an older teen, you want to make sure that there's some really specific things that these things are watching, screen time's not doing it for you, I would invite you to check out a couple of these apps. So I used to give, in the early days of the workshop, I had this just laundry list, like 10, 12, 15 apps I told parents. And parents would just come up to me and go, just tell me what the best one is. And so here I've given you like what I think is 2 or 3 of the best ones, okay? So instead of giving me this big long list, this is 2 of the 3 best ones. I think that Custodio is like the best all around, in my opinion. And they've got a lot of different things that they offer with it. And again, you'll notice there's a duplication of a lot of things we've already talked about. But again, you don't need multiple alerts alerting you of all this other different things. You just need one app to tell you this is probably it. Now, these are not free. These are third-party apps that will charge you by the month. They're not free like Screen Time or Family Link. But if you need them, they will actually do a little bit more based upon what platform they're on. So you'll notice here, you've got web filtering, obviously, daily screen time limits. You can do that with screen time. You've got games and apps blocking. You can do that with screen time. But you've got custom routines. You can also do that with screen time. You can pause the internet. You can do that with your wireless router. So you can recreate most of the stuff that's here. You can create it with your wireless router and a combination of screen time or Family Link on your device. So you don't need one of these, but if you kind of want to just simplify your setup, this is a good way to do it as well. Now this is where it gets into a little bit of in-depth. You've got family location tracking. You've got a panic button for the child to alert their parents. Now that's on, you'll notice a couple of these are Android only. You'll notice that because Android allows a little bit more leeway and system integration than iOS on Apple does, because Apple's a little bit more stringent with that stuff. But you've got something pretty important right here, social media monitoring. All these are very, very popular apps. You've got voice alerts, gaming voice alerts. It flags unsafe conversations in game chats on the device. Calls and look at this right here, calls and SMS monitoring, text messaging, it's Android only. So it is really, I will tell you, it is really difficult if you want to monitor messages on an iPhone. They make it very difficult to do that, okay? You've got YouTube monitoring, and then it says you only get a history only on iOS, but then you've got App Insights, 30-day activity reports that are sent to you, search alerts for concerning queries. You can flag all this stuff, set all this stuff. They give you sliders to kind of give you the severity of what you want to, what your age of your kids is, all sorts of stuff. They've really thought a lot about this. And Custodio actually works when you put the app, the companion app on your child's device, and then you download the adult app to where you can control all of it. And it just kind of links up and it puts its tentacles into the operating system and controls all that for you. It's actually very, very good. So I highly recommend Custodio if you're looking for a little bit more control. And then there's one called Bark. Anybody ever heard of Bark? Okay. Anybody use Bark? Y'all use it? Okay. Bark is great. What I've heard from most people, and I tried it myself about a year ago, what I've heard from most people is it's great in theory when it does work. But sometimes, like anything else, it'll flag something that's not, there's no problem with it. It'll flag something, it'll have false positives, so to speak. And so it's basically an AI, it's an AI that looks at the actual screen of your device and gives you these alerts. 45 risk categories, monitors 30 different platforms, text and email monitoring. Now you get that with Bark, but you also have to download the required Bark Sync app. And so these are just apps, you just have to download these extra things, and it walks you through these things pretty simply, as a matter of fact. It'll give you screen time schedules, real-time GPS location, which again you get through multiple other services that are free and not free. You can do internet pause, weekly activity summary reports, unlimited children and devices on one subscription. That's actually pretty good, because if you've got 4 or 5 kids and you have to pay per device versus paying for one subscription, that's pretty good. Now, we'll tell you, it is $99 a year, so it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's also not the most expensive thing in the world. And so you've got these add-ons that you can do. You've got a Bark Home, which is a Wi-Fi filter that you can add to your Wi-Fi at home. You've got the Sync app that scans your phone, and so you have to have those kinds of things because Apple has some limitations on their messages in particular. Okay? Questions about these 2 apps? Yes, ma'am.
You know how Safari has where you can put private browsing?
Yes.
Will these, even not just the apps, but like walking at your router and the screen, will that cut off any capability for them to be able to do private browsing?
No, but it will cut off, it will filter the website that they're trying to look at.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So, but, and I mean, this hasn't happened, but I was just curious because when my kids find that, you know, like the information.
That's one thing I've asked. I've filed a lot of bug reports at Apple to say, like, you should not, if it's a child account that I've got on here, you should not allow them to have a private browsing window. Okay, so the nerd in me says yes, you can. Because private browsing is not, see that thing that kids don't realize either. This is a huge misnomer for kids because they'll all say, well, I was looking at that in my private browser. Well, guess what? The phone is not keeping a record of private browsing. But your ISP is, your router that it went through is, it's checking it. So you're going to get, if you have Eero in place or something similar to that, then you're going to have a log of that says, oh, they tried to go to this and it was blocked. And so that's where you're going to get that. So you're getting it at another level. You're just not getting it on the phone. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's why, and again, that's why these systems kind of piggyback on one another. They kind of duplicate a lot of the same functionality, but at the same time, you've got a lot of overlap here to where you can have systems like that to where, well, it's not going to catch it on this because it's not going to log it on the private browsing, but it's going to log it on my router for sure because it's going to say this was blocked. Or even if it's not blocked, it's going to say they tried to access this. Yeah. Any other questions? It's about dinner time, isn't it? Yeah, we're getting down there, I promise. Okay. Life 360, this is one I'm pretty sure you've already heard of, but I just wanted to mention it as well. For teenagers especially, this is like just LoJack for teenagers is what it is. And it's like keeping up with them. The greatest thing I've ever heard from parents is that they can see the speed that they're driving, literally, or riding with somebody because if their device, they know how fast they're going. Okay? Yes, sir.
They have that. They put jam in my cell on it.
Yep.
One of them workers in.
Yep.
We call them all the time, what you doing there? And now they hate that we're on there.
And grandchildren ask their parents, said, whose idea was it to put the D on this?
Because I called my grandson one time and told him to slow down. he ain't gonna say, you need to slow down.
Texting while he was driving?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Don't do that.
Well, you don't text him to do that.
I'm pretty sure I texted.
Then he has a wreck answering your text message. That's not funny. That's not
I
funny.
said, you need to slow down. And then he got all his dead back.
But he
He
called
called.
him and he said, I'm the only one out here. He said, you and the state trooper will pull you over and take you to jail.
See, they didn't have this stuff when we were growing up. If they did, I would be in jail.
But you see, the thing is, I'll check his speed, what his speed was during the week and fuss at him.
Yeah.
And then one week I had, the top speed was their 19-year-old granddaughter. And I called her and I said, Abby, what are you doing driving? And she said, Nikki, I drive an ambulance. So, okay,
She's your work.
That's not, that's, yeah.
you can do that.
What are you doing driving 95? Yeah. Oh, that's
On
wild.
Maplesville Road, she goes.
But now she can use that as an excuse because she can be like, just drive her normal car. I'm driving 78. I don't care what it says. Yeah, that, and again, this kind of goes back to what we've all been talking about is like, hey, when kids know they're being watched. Yeah.
They have their friends on there, so they.
Oh, do they really?
Oh, yeah. They will create groups with their friends, they know where the friends are.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, see that? I always like to brag and say that I learn something new every digital parenting workshop. I just learned something new.
Yeah, well.
They do this with their
they can-
friends.
Yeah, and they can tell you that if
To
you're.
know when people go different places. Because you can, okay, so what you can do is you can set up a geofence with this. And you can say, I want to know when a person leaves or when a person arrives at this from this
Yeah, my
geofence.
son has that turned on for me. Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
that worked for him. But-
Now let's go a little bit darker here. How could that work against you?
Well, I know where I'm at.
Yeah. Could that?
I don't know anywhere, so.
That's just me thinking glass half empty kind of attitude, but I'm thinking like, I don't think it's any business what my children think. Then my children don't need to know where I'm at. My wife does,
Well, I did have.
but my children don't need to know where I'm at.
Because he joined another family's group, and I was like, I said,
Oh,
I
okay,
don't need their parents to know where you are.
okay.
Yeah, because it's like they're all there. the whole
Yeah,
thing.
you gotta draw the line somewhere,
It's
yeah.
one thing for you and your friends to kind of track each other, but like another adult, no one where he was
I
at.
didn't know that it was like a little social network kind of thing going on though. That's crazy.
But also, as they can tell you, if the phone flies off the car as you're driving, it will alert the police. It'll alert the police. So if you're hiking and you drop your phone down, this will call the police.
It also alerts everybody in the circle that you have right. So everybody got a massive alert. My son's car, phone fell off the car, dropped on the road.
Phone fell off the
It
car?
was on the hood of the car and they
Oh,
stopped driving.
okay.
And everybody in the group got calls.
So I got a phone call, everybody's like, "Where are you?"
Because everybody's panicking because they thought my nephew was hurt somewhere, but then I was like, so.
But-
if you're not hiking somewhere though,
But in a
you're driving?
situation where your 16-year-old
Yeah,
gets in a serious car accident like that, it actually is,
Yeah.
You're gonna know that.
yeah.
But I did have a call. No way.
Huh. Learn something new every day. Thank y'all for teaching me. Okay, so we know all about Life 360. All right. But it's a good, I would say, especially for older teens, it's a very good app. Amazon Kids, you're talking about going from the opposite end of the spectrum to younger kids. This is a good introductory kind of tablet device to get them. And Kids Plus is actually very cost effective. You can buy these Kindle Fire devices that have a kid interface on them. So if you've got a 5, 6, 7-year-old that you want to give a device, you can set time limits for those. You can get a detailed report for that. And plus those devices are much cheaper than iPads. And most of the time when you buy them, I know Christmas is kind of coming up here in a few months. Black Friday, Best Buy runs a lot of specials on Amazon Fire tablets, and they will let you buy those. They'll give you Kids Plus for a year, all sorts of stuff. They got really good insurance plans on those too because they know they're for kids. And if you break one, you bring it back and you get a brand new one. So it's a pretty good idea for smaller kids. Don't do like I did and start them off on iPads and then try to go back to something like this. It doesn't work that way. But if you start them this way and then you say, oh, you're 10 years old, we can get you an iPad, then that's different, okay? So, but they get an iPad, they're never gonna go back because this has got a very specific set of things that you can do on it and not do. They used to have my 14-year-old now who had one when he was 5, they had one called Learn First, Play Later, and he hated it. He hated it because it made him do math problems for like 10 minutes before he could play his little game. And so they've got that feature on there as well. It's very kid-friendly. I wish that Apple would do something to make a kid-friendly account on like iPads, but so far they haven't done that. Okay, let's keep moving. I did want to say app-by-app audits. This is YouTube and Netflix, and Netflix actually does a really decent job of looking at these different things. You go to netflix.com/account to change all this different stuff. And again, all these slides, you feel free to take photos, but all these slides are going to be up on the website as well. You can download them as well. You got to go on the web to do this, like I said, and then you've got to check into maturity ratings. And what I like about Netflix is that you can actually you can do what's called restricted titles. You can search for any title that's on the Netflix catalog and you can just block it. Doesn't matter what age range you've got set, you can just block it. And we didn't like the larva and booba. These are like weird, they're like, I don't know what they are. They're like weird sing-along shows. They were so annoying. And I was just like, I told my wife, I was like, you know, I can go on there and block that. And she goes, you can? And I did. And then they get on there and they're like, where's larva? And I'm like, they must have took it off. I'm sorry. You know, it's like, I don't condone lying to your kids, but, and then, you know, you get into one like we had, this is an actual thing, Horrid Henry. It was funny because my wife comes in there and Horrid Henry is this like cartoon that Jacob used to like. He used to like it just for the animation style, but Horrid Henry, she came in there and she goes, I do not like how this young man is talking to his mother. And I went on there and she goes, you go on there and block it. And I went on there, blocked. So they don't want to watch that anymore. But this actually comes into play because in 2021, anybody familiar with the show that came on Netflix caused a big controversy? 13 Reasons Why. Okay? If you had, maybe it was, I don't think it was TV PG, but if you had PG-13 set on there, that would come up super, they were promoting it super big. It would have a super big splash screen, 13 Reasons Why, watch now. Well, this show was about basically glorification of suicide. That's what it was about. Making it seem heroic for this girl or this boy, I can't remember which one, I didn't watch it, but this boy that committed suicide. That is not something I want my 13-year-old to watch at all, let alone any of my teenagers. And so if that would have been the case and my kids would have been watching this on a profile, that would have been blocked. And knowing that I can go on there and block certain things is actually very good for me. So that's just one of the many things. They've got a spectrum here of the maturity ratings. Yeah, they got the maturity ratings that you can put. And we've been kind of moving down the line here. We haven't quite gone to PG-13 yet because you get to PG-13 and it actually opens up significantly for a lot of stuff because they allow a lot with PG-13 movies these days. So I would really look into ratings and stuff. I don't even have this on the presentation, but my brother-in-law he reviews current movies and books. It's called withtravis.com. And I need to put this on a slide, I know, but he reviews current movies and books, and so make sure to check him out. There's also all of the services. Common Sense Media will give you a breakdown of every single thing that is in a movie or a show, down to innuendo, and every time they used a certain curse word, all sorts of different things. They will give you all sorts of things. It's not a spiritual kind of website, but it will tell you exactly what is in that show or in that movie so that you can deem it appropriate or not. Right. And that's why I recommend my brother-in-law's one, because he doesn't charge for it, and he's got the same type of review. With Travis.
With Travis?
That's it.
With the Travis?
With Travis. Withtravis.com. So he has a bunch of reviews up there. He'll go to brand new movies and literally take a notepad and just make notes during the movie. And he's got two teenage daughters. Preaches at the Millview congregation in Franklin, Tennessee. Yeah, and there's a lot of different services out there like that. You can also look up different things for your home. VidAngel is a good one that I've heard good things about, but they also have some limitations. Not everything is available on those services. Those services have to opt into those kinds of things for them to be able to block out certain scenes and certain words and phrases and things like that.
It's interesting. I was trying to advocate for us, but you can't put Disney Plus on.
No, you can't. And Disney had done that on purpose, and which is really, really irritating, because Disney has a lot of the streaming services now have the same kinds of things as Netflix does, and my list for blocking on Disney is quite long, because it is. I don't get me wrong. I love Disney and I love a lot of the stuff that they put out, but some of it is just marketed to kids and not appropriate for kids. And I don't have to go into details on that. But yeah, a lot of these services are going to have a lot of stuff like this. Now, when we get to YouTube, YouTube actually did a really good job because YouTube did not have hardly any parental controls, like whatsoever, up until a year and a half ago. They literally did not have it password protected. They had it to where the user could go on there and pause search history and pause watch history. And for like a teenager, that was just, music to their ears. So what they did is they introduced these parental controls, and these are all inside of Family Link as well, but they're all also inside on the web. You can download these, but you can check the kids' content. You can actually block direct channels. If there's a channel, I have done this there's probably a list of 100 channels I've blocked for my boys. But the great thing about it is that the profile syncs everywhere. So if my kids only watch YouTube on the big TV in our living room when one of us is in there. And I have tried and failed to disable shorts on the screen. They love just going to the shorts. They love shorts. And you can't ever tell what a short is going to be. And those are randomly recommended, it seems like. And so what I have found is that I have to block the account. So every now and then they'll pull up something and it'll have something on there and I'll just go type it in and I'll be like, yep, that's blocked now. And they'll never see another short or recommendation video from that channel ever again. So you can block channels here. You can also review what they've watched on whatever device they're watching it on. So if they did have access beyond that TV, which they don't, but if they did, I could see what they've been watching and ask questions about that. And then you can they give you this I wish they would do a little bit more fine tuning with this, but at least they give you the other settings as well. So they give you like this 9+ and then like 13+. And so 13+ for teenagers, say 15 and above, is probably going to be appropriate. So what it's going to do is it's going to set this content filter across YouTube if you put in that middle setting right there. It's going to be pretty decently strict for 9+, okay? And so that's where we've got ours set. That's where we've chosen to do it right now because I've got a 9-year-old, obviously. But if you put most of YouTube, it's going to be almost all the content. That's what it says right there on YouTube. So you need to make sure that you explore this. Again, this is inside the Family Link app. This is what it used to look like, by the way. This is the old YouTube app from pre-fall 2025. You could get to this screen with no password, just tapping on the settings app inside the YouTube app. Now you tell me a 15-year-old boy seeing these settings. Kids are kids. Well, I don't want my mom finding out about what I'm watching, so let's just go ahead and pause this. And if you pause it, what does that mean? Well, if you pause the search history or you pause the watch history, then you remember to unpause it. It doesn't look like you've cleared, because you go in there and it's cleared out and you've never watched anything, then you know something's up, right? But this is kind of a thing, and I'm like, why would they think that this was appropriate? Especially for kids. Well, I'm glad they got rid of this because this is not what, I think you can still do this, but I think these settings go away completely if you have it attached to one of the kid accounts. Okay? These settings or the one on YouTube TV? That's a very good question. I'm not sure about that. I would imagine that YouTube TV has its own set of settings, but seeing that it's mainly broadcast TV, I don't know how that would work. We just didn't watch YouTube TV. We had YouTube TV for a while and we just didn't watch it, so we got rid of it. Right. Well, I pay for ESPN. Between CBS and ESPN, I can get all the college football that I want, and so that's all I pay for. I don't even pay for YouTube TV anymore. What's that? So ESPN Plus, yeah, and now it's $30, but I can watch every single football game that ESPN has. They pretty much own all the college football. And then we have Paramount, which gets us CBS, so I can watch that. Anyway, that's my football. That's what I'm going to be doing here in 2 weeks. If y'all ever notice why I don't schedule digital parentings in the fall, that's the reason why. Okay, we're almost done. I promise we're almost done. YouTube Kids sometimes can have weird stuff, so don't really trust it. It may have kids in the title, but don't really trust it, okay? And if you do let your kids have YouTube Kids, turn off autoplay. In fact, turn off autoplay on everything that you can turn it off on, including YouTube. But turn off autoplay, because why would I say that? Just thought exercise with me here. Why would I say turn off autoplay? Why is that important? Anybody know? Addiction. Okay, addiction. It just keeps rolling. But what else?
Builds the algorithm.
That's it. Who picks the next video if it's on autoplay? The algorithm does. Okay? And so you just really don't want that at all. You want at least your kids picking that. And so if you have a time limit on this as well, only give them little 30-minute kind of time frames. You think sitcom length time frames. At least we used to have sitcoms back in the day, right? And so just give them 30 minutes at a time with these things and space it out, actually. If you want to give them 30 minutes, we give our boys 30 minutes on YouTube at about 4:30 in the afternoon, and then we give them 30 minutes on YouTube at about 6:30 at night after dinner, if they want it, which they usually always do. And so it's one of those things where my wife or I has to be on the thing, and that kind of spaces it out, because if they get into it where they've watched it for 45 minutes or an hour, it's almost like there's this threshold that they cross, to where when I say, okay, it's time to go brush teeth, and they go, no, just one more video. Like, it's hard for them to pull away from it after they've been on there for longer. And so I've found that 30-minute time slot is good, because when it cuts off and they go, oh, and I'm like, okay, it's time for dinner. Let's all go sit at the table. I want you to set the table for me. And they go, okay, and they just get up and do it. But I feel like if they've been watching it for an hour, it's like they're even more sluggish, like, you know how kids are. So yeah, interesting strategies there. Okay, this is the last slide of the day. Can you believe that? I'm talked out. Your carrier, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, whoever that may be, I have found them to be extremely helpful with phones. If you call them, call customer service. If you are having issues with any of this kind of stuff, or you need to do any of this kind of stuff, or you just have general account questions and you're an administrator on the account, I have found their customer service, in fact, AT&T's customer service is actually pretty outstanding. Almost every interaction I've had with them has been very good. Now, what I will tell you is don't walk into the AT&T store and go fix my phone, because they're not there to fix your phone. They're there to sell you the phone. Okay? And again, that's nothing against them, but they're salespeople in there. They're not technical people, and they really can't. I know that they can probably help you, but I have found calling and talking to a customer service representative has been much, much better, not just in my experience, but a lot of other parents. And that's what I recommend when they say, well, I need to block this number and it's not coming through. And most of that stuff you can do on your phone now. You used to not be able to do that. But I've got parents that have asked me, like, hey, I want to shut off their texting for a month. How do I do that? I'm like, customer service. They can do it for you now. And sometimes you can download the AT&T app or the Verizon app, and you can do that on your phone now. You don't have to talk to anybody. So make sure you look at personal hotspot as well. Some of them are enabled by default. And now they have it on Apple devices where it auto connects sometimes. You might want to turn that off because it might be sucking up all your data. So you make sure you want to turn that off if you are aware of that. Set a password for it, exactly. And make sure that not everybody can join it. Make sure that you... Also a good idea. Great catch. All right. Anything else? Yes, sir.
We go resorts quite a bit, and now when you get in a resort, they'll say, you go to the white Wi-Fi, tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas you got the Wi-Fi on your phone. Is that okay?
In most cases, yes. Hotel Wi-Fi, cruise ship Wi-Fi, those kinds of things are usually enterprise-grade systems that have very good security, and usually they're completely fine. The ones that you run into trouble with are smaller resorts, smaller hotels, coffee shops are notorious for that. I'll tell you a little story. I was in a coffee shop one time, and again, I don't expect anybody to identify with this. I am a super nerd. I don't know if you figured that out yet, okay? We've been together all afternoon, but whatever. I'm a super nerd. I've got this little app on my computer called Little Snitch, and it will basically tell me or alert me when someone is monitoring my web traffic. So I'm on my computer just typing away, just doing whatever, I'm doing some work, and I literally see, and it pops up and says, this IP address is tracking your keystrokes, it's tracking everything like that, and I go, And I literally look over my laptop, and there's a guy sitting all the way across. He locks eyes with me and just closes his laptop and gets up and leaves. And I was like, yep, that was interesting. He was monitoring my traffic. I don't know what he was trying to do, but when they monitor things like keystrokes, what they're trying to do is get you to log into something so that they'll log your keystrokes for your password, which is why it's so important to have your passwords stored in your passwords app or in 1Password or something to where it just autofills, because they can log every keystroke and go, yep, that's his password, and now we've got his password. So yeah, in smaller venues like that, I would say yes. But on a cruise ship, I think they pretty much got it handled. What you can do to secure yourself even further is download a VPN app if you're concerned about that. And a VPN app is literally just going to create a virtual private network on your phone, on your computer, and it's going to make you just a little bit harder to see on a network. And you're probably not going to have that issue anyways. It's a good question, though. Anything else? I know that I did not cover everything by any means. I know there's probably a lot that I left out, actually. But I do want to ask, has this been a little bit helpful to everybody? I really appreciate your attention. You sitting here all afternoon listening to me drone on about this stuff, okay? Tomorrow morning is going to be fantastic. And Derek, I'm teaching Bible class in here or just to the teens? In here. In here, okay. So teens will be in here? Okay, so great. So we'll talk a little bit more. I've yet to decide what I want to teach a Bible class about, but I'll decide that tonight. And tomorrow morning I'll also be preaching as well. If I want to teach. No, the teens. Oh, the teens.
Teens in here or not?
I can. Oh yeah, I can absolutely. I want the teens in here. Absolutely, yes. This was one of those kinds of things where it's like, I don't know if I want teens. It's not. This is not really made for teens. It's made for you. If I'm going to talk to teens about stuff, I'm going to talk about a whole different set of things. Okay. All right. Let's have a prayer. We'll be done. And look at that. 4:25. Didn't go till 5 o'clock after all. How about that? Okay, let's pray.